right. Here we go. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. What's happening? Hope everybody is well. Hope things are good in your world. And if they're not, I hope that watching the show brings a little light and joy to your life. So, what's up? What's up in Yo, speaking of London, what's this I'm hearing about an Oasis reunion? 10 nights in Wembley Stadium? Is that right? If that's the case, I got to come out to London. I want to see Oasis. Hey, Brian Matson, what's happening? Hey, Paul in Antwerp. Come on now. Love Antwerp. Yeah. Lori Dawn in Cape Cod. I'm bringing you on in a minute. Yo, Danny, I see Yo, Danny, I see you in Arizona. I'll bring you on in a bit, Danny. Yeah. Fuck Oasis, huh? Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Is that right, Paul? You saw me in Antwerp. That was a great screening. We screened was that the New York Hardcore Chronicles film we screened in Antwerp, or was that the Boston film? I think it was the New York film, right? That said. Yeah. You know, what else? Debo the Pro, my man. What's up, Debo? How's things up in New York Hardcore Comics? Good. All right. Let's. Hey, Dom, did you reach out to Scott Earth, bro? There you go. Scotland in the house. Good evening, all from Scotland. Hopefully, Oasis rumors are true. Lucky I got to see them. I've never seen them, and I would like to see them. Larry Kelly, what's up? We're going to London. Oasis is reforming. Speaking of Oasis reforming, what's going on?
Hello.
You know what? You know who I want to be a part of this? This one here.
Hey, there she is.
What are you laughing at?
I like Steven's opening. It was very good, very dramatic.
By the way, that's the New York pigeon behind the feathers.
It's amazing.
I'm not a big fan of pigeons.
I love pigeons.
It's a book of portraits.
Pigeons are like flying rats.
They could fly anywhere, and they want to be around us in the cities.
That's right.
We brought them to the cities as homing. Those messenger pigeons, and they chose to stay.
Good eating.
Okay.
It's a beautiful story.
Gary Rigby, Liverpool in the house. Wow. UK checking in. Gary, what's up with that Oasis reunion, bro? Someone's going to have to hook me up over there.
I wonder if they'll have opening bands.
Yo, they don't need opening bands. Who the fuck wants to sit through an opening band? Yo, you know what? Fucking opening band. Yo, fuck all them opening bands.
I wonder if they'll get along like long enough to last the 10 shows.
Just make it through, you know?
Yeah.
Don't buy a ticket to the 10th show. That's the key.
You sent me.
You really want to get those like the first and second. Those are the,
Exactly.
Let's do some, Steven, let's do a photo of the day. Let's bring it back. Well, this is sort of obvious what this is, right? I mean, I was going to say, wrong answers only, please. But this is sort of like there's no real wrong answer here. You know?
Really.
So
awesome.
Well, what's the tie-in here, Lori?
So I don't know what the tie-in is, but I know who that is. Oh wait, well they just played, right?
Where are they from?
Long Island.
Massapequa.
That's right.
Stray Cats are from Massapequa.
Massapequa.
Yep.
Yes, this was last Friday at last Thursday actually at the Pier 17 up on the roof, and great night. In fact, the last time I'd seen them was at the very same venue right before lockdown, and they reunite every few years, and they just it is Eddie Cochran from La Bamba, and they're fantastic. I mean, the same three guys for 40-something years now. And Brian still sings great, still plays his ass off. And I mean, we grew up like that's a band I've been seeing probably since about 81, 82. And
Yeah.
great.
That's Lee Rocker.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, he
Yep.
really
They
I
all
was
just-
right I was right in front of the bass amp, and it's like somebody punching you in the chest. You know.
And you're enjoying it.
Run
Oh,
away,
it's
boys!
It was great.
Yeah.
And of course Slim Jim, you know, the third of the group. They just, you know, I feel like that band never made a misstep, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember they came out.
I got
think
one for you. Wait, I got one.
grade.
What was the name of the band that Brian Setzer was in that played CB before the Stray Cats that played CBGB?
I know it, but I won't say.
We'll see.
I forget it.
Everyone's like going
I
into,
know it.
you know.
Slim Jim looks like Kramer in this picture, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yep. Hey, you know, I think I've mentioned this on the show before. For a while there, we were doing a rockabilly documentary, me and Jim, and this was going on for a while. We shot a bunch of footage for it. We did a trailer.
Oh, nice.
Me and Jim, and then here's a great shot right here. This is from one of the shoot days we did in Hollywood, because he's a Hollywood guy. There's me, Steve Jones,
Nice.
Slim Jim, and tattoo legend Mark Mahoney.
Oh wow, looking sharp with that jacket too.
Yeah.
Steve Jones.
Yep.
Look at.
Yeah. So we shot a bunch of stuff, and things were moving along. Wait, one more. Get a load of this one. This is another interview we did. This is going deep in the rockabilly world right here. It's Slim Jim, me, and that's Charlie Connor from Little Richard's band.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Slim Jim looks like
somebody
a
got
person.
it. The answer.
Yeah. It's the Bloodless Pharaohs. That's right.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
That's it.
It's the Bloodless Pharaohs.
Yeah.
In fact,
right.
you know who they used to play with? You know Larry Kerwin from Black 47?
Yep.
He had a band around that same time that would play with the Bloodless Pharaohs called the Major Thinkers. And before they both went off and had their successes, you know. But
you know what I did?
The footage for them from that documentary?
Yeah, I've got all the footage.
Oh, you should show some of that stuff.
I got bored out. It's not appropriate for me to
Oh, I see.
post. I got bored out of the project. You know what happened? You know what happened to the whole thing? Stray Cats reunion. That's what happened.
Okay.
We were doing this thing. We were going to go to Viva Las Vegas. We were going to do this and that. And then he wandered off to the next shiny thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good shiny thing, though. Everyone loves the Stray Cats.
Hey, you know who I saw yesterday? I went to the Afro Punk Fest.
Oh, nice.
And I saw a couple bands, including our pals in Rebelmatic.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool looking stage. Where is this?
That's the Prospect Park Band Shell.
Oh wow.
Oh, okay.
So I'm shouting out Rebelmatic, and right before Rebelmatic played, our friends in Winterwolf played.
Nice.
And that's how close I was. I was right up against the barrier.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a cool looking stage. I like that stage a lot.
Yeah, it was a big stage.
How's the sound?
It was good. It was all right.
Nice.
I left after them. You know me. I watched the two bands and split.
Yeah.
That's pushing it.
What's
for
her
you.
name was headlining? Erica Badayu?
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's cool.
Yep. Hey, you know
Beautiful
what?
day
While
for it.
we're here, let's bring a friend on, our friend from Arizona for a couple minutes. before we bring our main guest on. He has a new book out. The one, the only, big supporter of the show, Satan himself, Danny Marianino. What's up?
I had to adjust the bottom of it because the last time I was on, it said the Lord of Darkness when my name came up. I was like, oh shit! It still says Lord of Darkness.
Danny, let's do a minute or two. You got a new book. Tell us about it.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for having me on, everybody. Good to see you, Laurie, and Steve over there as well. So I got a new book out. It's called Night of the Gabagool. And I'm doing something different with it this year. I'm doing a Kickstarter, which, as I'm sure most of you guys know, sort of a crowdfunding sort of a thing. It's a children's book, which is my first kids, venture there. Because look at that, Vinny Doke, he knows. I've never written a book that didn't have bad words through the whole book, so that was already a task in its own. But I got together with Mick Lambro, which most of you guys all know. He does shirts.
Oh, he's a
great artist.
Yeah. I mean, this is the cover of it there, but
very cute. Yeah.
So what it is, it's basically a story of a guy whose name is Troy, who's kind of a jerk. Nobody likes him in the neighborhood, and he doesn't give out Halloween candy. So the Great Gabagool shows up at his house. And he's sort of a ghost character, and he takes his ability away to eat Italian food. And when I tell you this is ridiculous, I mean, I basically did like a Twas the Night Before Christmas meets like a Charlie Brown pumpkin story.
It sounds like a Christmas Carol and Halloween kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. The whole thing rhymes, like I give you an example. You know how like Santa Claus flies away into the sky, to Merry Christmas to all and Happy New Year. Well, it says the Great Gabagool walked out the front door to hop in his IROC and head down the shore. So, I mean, it's like super Guido. It's very funny. And I wanted to write a kid's book that like a parent could read to a kid and not want to kill themselves. Because most of those kids' books, they're the worst things in the world,
Yeah.
And where can our audience connect with it?
So you can go to Kickstarter, look up Night of the Gabagool. I got social media pages for Night of the Gabagool on Instagram, on TikTok, all the stuff, Facebook, and the links are on everything as well. Take you right to it. If you go to Mick Lambro's Instagram, the link is right there as well. We only got 10 days left, and we've hit our goal. So it's funded. Thank you. It's funded, and it's happening. But, like most people that do a Kickstarter campaign, especially their first, we lowballed our goal so we could hit goal.
With Kickstarter, if you don't hit your goal, you don't get anything. As opposed to GoFundMe or Indiegogo. So the thing about Kickstarter is if you don't reach your projected goal, you see GOTS. So
that's it. Yeah. I don't want GOTS coming my way. So we lowballed it to hit the goal, but we still got a little bit more to go. And listen, there's a lot of cool things with the look at this, you guys reading the book at the 10th anniversary. Awesome, man. That's part so we got the Kickstarter. You could buy the book. Then there's an audio version of the book where you can download. It's another tier. I recorded like a whole like kids turn the page book, like in the 80s, like when you hear the sound of R2D2 turn the page. Mm-hmm. I went into a studio and did it. It's fucking awesome. Fantastic. And it's a nice little additional thing. And then there's add-ons. Like you can add the Don't Ever Punch a Rockstar book. It blows my mind. Both books are on there, different tiers, add-ons. There's a really cool shirt that looks like the Ghostbuster logo, but it's the Gabagool, and it says Gabagool on the front of it there. Cool. That's an add-on. There's a lot of cool add-ons to help add some more stuff. And you can add a second book at a discount that will donate to the Phoenix Children's Hospital. So that's a cool thing, too. I'm already going to take a stack of books over there anyway. So.
I told you this before, and I'll mention it again. Your social media and your Kickstarter game was really on point with this.
Thank you.
It really was. You really, I would, if anybody out there is thinking about doing a Kickstarter thing or something, check out the page for this. They really did their homework and they really put it together properly. So,
listen to Satan.
Yeah, leave it to Satan to figure it out. That said,
I went and hassled a bunch of people to really get some insight on how they did it, and everybody
good.
had a different story. So I just took everybody's knowledge and put it together and did my best. Thank you.
Great.
I appreciate it. And thank you for backing this room.
Yeah, of course.
I see you.
All right. I see you. I see you. So, send me the link. Remind me. Send me the link, and I'll put it on the New York Hardcore Chronicles page.
All right.
Again. And hey, that said, we just there it is. We just
sitting on the floor right next to me. Actually,
we just booked. We just booked a ticket. Me and Michelle, we're coming to your town in November.
All right, cool. Plan on eating, man.
What's the name of that place we went to?
The Falcos. The Falcos.
Let's go there. We'll go
That's
there.
the jam over there, man.
Yeah. All right, Danny. I love you, bro. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Love you too. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you guys too. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We love that guy.
Yeah.
Who the devil was such a nice guy?
Hey, listen. The devil, it's a tough gig,
Yeah.
Wait, here's my last photo, but before we bring our guest on, here's our last photo here. This is from yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Like he's rocking the pink Rebelmatic shirt. I'm rocking the black Rebelmatic shirt.
Yeah. I just picked up that pink one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
It's good.
Good stuff. They were great. Yo, Rebelmatic was really great yesterday at Afro Punk. They know how to do it on the big stage. When they bring a game, the Rebelmatic's a great.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love that band. They're great, but when they really ramp up their game, they're fantastic.
Creature's energy out there is just unmatched. So small stage, big stage, just makes it work.
Absolutely. All right, Steven, thanks. Let's bring our guest on.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll talk to you soon. Lori, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, Mad Vintage, and the Texas Silver Rush. They're a jewelry design firm and boutiques firm. They're a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as the styling for stage album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rollet, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. Information on online sales are being taken at their Facebook pages and Instagram, and of course, www.texassilverrush.com. Firm. That said, let's bring our guest on. Hey, Chris. Yo, Chris. I got to shout out Chris right here. It just so happens, I hope you're still watching, Chris. Tonight is Chris's book release at Otto's Shrunken Head. There it is right there. Congratulations on the book, H-Bomb, Rising from the Ashes of Addiction, a memoir. Chris Zinel, big release party tonight at Otto's Shrunken Head, starting at 6 p.m. Congratulations to our friend and supporter, Chris Zinel. That said, let's clear the deck. Of course, Chris, that just so happened you showed up right at the right moment. That Bear Bro, we love you, bro. Hope you're well. Listen, enough. Let's bring our guest on. Enough with you people. Enough. Firm. Today's guest is a musician and author and avid collector of punk and hardcore memorabilia hailing from Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. As a musician, he is known for his work with the bands Forward to Death, Psyched to Die, Splitting Headache, and of course, Nightbirds. As a collector, he is the force behind Ancient Artifacts, which collects and documents historical items from the punk and hardcore scene, along with stories about the items themselves. Here today to celebrate the release of the book Ancient Artifacts, please welcome, coming at us from the Garden State of New Jersey, Mr. Brian Gorsegner. Ow! Hey!
What's happening? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, I can guarantee it. You know, how's things in Jersey?
Things are good. We just got a new puppy. It's the first dog I've ever had. and he's currently got some tummy troubles. He's been barfing all day, but aside from that, things are well.
Houston, we have a barfer.
Yeah, he's a cutie though.
Cats are pukers. Cats puke.
Yeah, we have 3 of those, so I'm familiar with that. But
yeah,
the dog barf is so sad.
I know cat. I guess dogs barf and cats puke, right? I mean, sure. that kind of makes sense. Like cat puke is basically 90% hair ball, so it's like, you know. But I have vivid memories of a child of like stepping in cat puke constantly.
Yeah. No, I'm no stranger to that at all.
Like, ugh. That said, let's get into it a little bit. I'm really excited. Let's kind of set the table, and then we'll talk about this incredible book that has recently come out that is so chock full of punk and hardcore history and folklore. I mean, it is really incredible and put together really well. So that said, how did you come up? Did you grow up in a musical household? How did music come into your life?
No, I didn't really grow up in a musical household. By the time I was like 7 or 8, I think music was kind of like a novelty to my parents. My mom still had some 8 tracks and had her records. I remember listening to the Monkees album, that was her record, and listening to her Meatloaf Bat Outta Hell 8 track. But it was kind of like, playing my dad's Atari. It was like a throwback, like, oh, let's listen to a piece of music. But no, they never played instruments. It just wasn't a very artistic household, just very Jersey, suburban. My dad was a volunteer firefighter. My mom did ceramics and shit like that. And honestly, it was when I discovered punk, the way that a lot of us get into punk, through hating everything going on and wanting something different. And then, I kind of gravitated toward that first, and then the music.
What was the first music that came across your radar screen that you connected to?
I was listening when I was like 12, 13. It was Nirvana, Soundgarden, all that kind of like noisy pre-punk kind of stuff. That was like a real easy segue into Black Flag, into Minor Threat and stuff like that, because that's what those bands grew up on, So
totally.
That's the stuff that was happening when I was like a younger kid, kind of like getting into stuff. And then really it was punk by the time I was 14. As soon as I kind of knew it was a thing, I wanted to do a band, I wanted to partake in it, I kind of gravitated right toward it.
What was the first, we'll in lack of a better term, we'll call it punk. What was the first punk stuff that you saw or that like spoke to you?
Probably the Ramones. I went to a flea market that was in Collingwood, New Jersey, and I would go there with my dad to get Nintendo games. And I had heard of the Ramones, so they had a copy of Mondo Bizarro on cassette, and I got a copy of that. And maybe the first Clash around the first day. And then after that, the stuff that was like the 99-cent compilations that were at my CD store, all the Punk-O-Rama, all that like 90s skate punk, the NoFX, Bad Religion, Rancid, that stuff was all when I was 14, 15. So that had a major impact.
And there's a bit of a foreshadowing here, in so much that eventually your band would be involved with Fat Mike, with Fat Records, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool that eventually you sort of, yeah.
I mean, love or hate the guy, he's a fucking, he lives and breathes punk. And through discovering that stuff and skateboarding and stuff like that when I was 14, it made me want to do a band. And then the fact that they took enough interest to get my band's records in Japan and Australia and all over the place, and people could find it, affordable, and allow me the opportunity to tour in those places and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll never knock that shit. I mean, it's like, it has a time and its place. It's a nice, what's that called? Like a gateway band, or like, a segue kind of thing into other stuff. And I think a lot of people discover that stuff and then they never leave and they only like that shit. It's like, Yeah, you know.
You know what I call that? I call that like stuff like that is a bridge, right? It's a bridge to something else. I call that living on the bridge.
Yeah.
Like they never get off the bridge. They like live on the bridge. They don't they don't get to the other side. They live that happens a lot. You mentioned something interesting about bands like Soundgarden and Nirvana, and that sort of being the gateway to bands like Black Flag and what have you. I think that's really interesting. In your case, it reminded me of like people, let's say in the early 70s that got into like Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones, and then sort of looked like, where did this stuff come from? And then that's how people discovered early American blues artists, because they were just basically, that was the gateway to a lot of, other stuff. And I think that's really interesting that bands like Soundgarden and Nirvana, for a lot of people, for a lot of kids, was really the gateway to a lot of harder music like Black Flag and Circle Jerks and Bad Brains and stuff like that.
Yeah, because they did a good job wearing that stuff on their sleeves and promoting those bands when they could. And I always appreciated, if you could look at the back cover of a record and see a T-shirt and want to check out that band, or read a thanks list and something gets shouted out that you want to check it out. I got into stuff just pre-internet enough that it was still kind of, you had to put together the puzzle pieces to find the next thing. And, I'm no like anti-internet person. I think that there's, it brings about a lot of good shit. But there was something fun about having to buy a record and be like, oh, this shit sucks. Like he was wearing this or that. So I bought the thing and then I'm like, but it's also a fun way. Cause then when you find something you love, it means so much more, cause you really can connect to it in a cool way.
Absolutely. This ties in with what we're getting to with Ancient Artifacts, but as a kid, were you a collector? Did you sort of were you a hunter and a gatherer? Did you collect comic books and baseball cards and stuff like that?
I collected baseball cards when I was like, whatever age people collect baseball cards, 10 or whatever. That was it. Never really comic books. I was never a comic book guy. And then, when you start getting into stuff, I think people a lot of times get into punk with a little group of friends, and it was always very competitive, because you wanted to be the first person to discover, I remember my one friend finding out about like the toy dolls, and we were like so fucking jealous because it was so good. And he went and got the CDs first, and then he had the t-shirt, and I'm like, well, fuck, now I can't buy the t-shirt because he already has it. And, so it was like, it was competitive in that way of like wanting to find the best shit. And then you just get like, it's pretty easy to get hooked pretty quick because there's a lot of good shit.
Sure. And right out of the gate, did you want to form a band? Was Forward to Death your first band?
No.
And walk us through a little bit. Like, I want to be in a band. I'm putting a band. Like, what was the timeline of the bands?
Yeah. Again, I think it was a lot of that. Like, I wasn't great at sports. I hadn't really found my place. Didn't have a ton of friends. And then kind of like just discovering punk, the music, but also just the kind of like, I feel at home with this stuff. Like kind of a loser, kind of a fuck up. Like I connect to a lot of elements of this stuff. And I just had the right head stuff going on. I was just mad enough. I was frustrated enough. And it really all just kind of clicked. So I think like from the time that I was just talking to somebody about this. So I did, not to jump too far ahead, but I did panels for the book release, and we did a panel. And a question that I thought was kind of neat was like asking first generation, asking Brian Baker from Minor Threat, like, do you remember when you had to contemplate calling yourself a punk? Like I remember getting into stuff with my friends and getting a couple CDs and cassettes and being like, can I call myself a punk now? Like, I wanted to be part of it. I was like, holy fuck, like I'm all in. But at what point, like, how many CDs do I need? How many studded wristbands? Like, I want to be a part of this shit, but like, I don't want to do it pretty early. But asking old guys that same thing where it's like, do you remember like being like, yeah, this is for me. Yeah, I don't know. So like I started a band as quickly as I was identifying with punk. I didn't know how to play. Like, the people that I started a band with had no idea how to do anything, but our drummer's dad did a band. So in the basement, there was a drum kit, and there was there was an old Rickenbacker bass, and there was just gear, and we just picked it up, and we just started playing awful punk rock. And that's like, yeah, and then played in bands for the next couple decades. Like,
that's awesome. And you were a teenager?
Yeah, probably 13.
That's awesome. It reminds me of when I got the High and the Mighty together. It was like, I like went away to Boston, to Emerson, and fell in with the whole SSD crew. And when I came back to New York, I was like, I needed to start another band. I wanted to start another band, and reconnected with the kids I went to high school with. And I'm like, okay, you're going to be the bass player. You're the guitar player. You're the drummer. And we're doing this thing called hardcore. And it was interesting in retrospect who took to it and who sort of kind of got it and who just sort of like never got it, like as far as the guys in the band, it went. So it was sort of recruiting people for the movement early on when it wasn't really in the American or worldwide lexicon,
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what was the timeline of bands?
First band I did, it was called 48 Reasons, which turned into a band called The Survivors. Mm-hmm. And then that was kind of my first learning, just kind of figuring shit out. And then I'd say the first real band that I did was a band called Forward to Death. I played drums in that band. Again, I'd never played drums, but it was the same mindset when that band ended, where it was like, my friend has a drum kit, let's just keep fucking going.
Sure.
And then that band toured a bunch and did a bunch of stuff. And then I did a band that I played drums in also called Splitting Headache. I did another band called Psych to Die. I probably did 20 bands in the middle of all that stuff. I think I don't know if I ever played bass in a band, but
and this was and where you lived in Jersey, this was like a real vibrant sort of community of kids and places to play and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it was just the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. And, I don't think there's ever been a lull in New Jersey. I think there's always been, I'm not, scenes come and go and different kind of front runner bands come and go, but there was always something cool going on to be a part of. Psych that I played a show with you singing in Antidote at ABC No Rio. I don't know.
We talked about that.
Yeah, maybe 15 years ago or something. But all those bands were different levels of active, and then eventually started a band called Nightbirds, which would be the band that I did the most with. Put out a bunch of records, toured all over the place, kind of did all the shit. And
here's a Nightbird shot, of course. So and this looks very ABC No Rio-ish. This shot here.
It looks like a ceiling that could very easily go up in flames.
Yeah, I like the attempt at putting the foam up there just in case. That's gonna help anything.
Yeah, I don't know what that. Yeah, it straight up looks like a Molotov cocktail in basement form.
Yeah. So it seemed that Nightbirds, has when I put out that you were on the show, I heard from a bunch of people that love the band. Tell us a little bit about kind of how it came, what the run was. It seemed, you guys had a nice run there.
Yeah, we were a band for 12 years, but a couple of those were COVID years, so they didn't really count so much. I love everybody in the band, had an absolutely great time doing the band. I was never great at touring, and I've had anxiety issues for as long as I can remember. So touring with that band was it was difficult. The whole time I did it, it was really tough. And going to Europe and going to Australia and going to Mexico and doing all this shit with just, having to self-medicate and wear headphones 18 hours out of the day. And it just got to be a lot. But, it was great. I wouldn't change anything, but it kind of it wore down on me, and it kind of hit a point where actually it was kind of like a definitive decision. I was driving back from Detroit. I went to see John Brannon from Negative Approach, and I bought John's collection. And it was cool talking to him because when he started playing music, he did a band called Static, and it was like a proto-punk band. And then when he saw DOA, he was like, okay, no, I'm going to shave my head and I'm going to do this. And then when he saw the Birthday Party, he was like, no. Okay, I'm going to do Laughing Hyenas. And he was just so definitive with his thought. Yeah. And, you know, we kind of spent the weekend together, and I was already kind of thinking about it. But I was driving back, and I had started I was working on an Ancient Artifacts TV show at the time. I started working on the book, and I was really excited and enthusiastic about all that shit that I was doing. And it was a real just conscious decision that I was like, you know what? I don't want to play music anymore. Like again, like love my bandmates like brothers, like still, you know, we're best friends. I'm so happy with everything we got to do. It just hit a point where it just didn't feel natural anymore. And I think especially in punk and hardcore, if you feel like it's something you have to start turning on as opposed to something that comes naturally. And I did it for so many years where it just felt like second nature. It just came very naturally. And it got to a point where it wasn't feeling like that anymore. And, you know, we would have to go out of town, and I would just lose sleep about it for 2 weeks at a time. And I was like, man, you know, what am I beating myself up about?
It happens. You just lost your passion for it. It ran its course. And this is the last show you guys played?
Yeah. Yep. That's the last show.
Like, really, that was it. Well, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't even 2 years ago. So
no, yeah, it wasn't terribly long. But like before that was COVID, so we didn't do anything during that. And then we came out of that, and we maybe did like a show or something. But yeah, I don't know. It was like being able to make that definitive decision that I think had kind of been in my head for a long time. That like, and it wasn't just Nightbirds. I was doing other bands at the time, and I was like, I just don't want to play music anymore. I can't tell you that it's forever. But it was just like, damn, like once I kind of made that decision, like, whew, I breathed a sigh. And again, it's weird because there's so many elements of it that I really do love and that I really do miss. I love being in the studio. I miss hanging out with those guys. I miss you have tour friends that you only see when you're on the road. And I feel I miss a ton of those people and doing a lot of that stuff. Yeah. But I don't know. It just didn't feel right anymore.
I just wanted to I grabbed this just as, you mentioned being on the road, and like, this is 2018, but you guys were out there putting in some work. Here's, you guys are playing 5, 6, 7 shows, a month and month after month. And I mean, you guys were definitely grinding there, for a while, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and a lot of stress. And, I think, I don't know if is it fair? I think part of it is when you're doing it at a certain level, it's a little bit easier. But when you're grinding at a level where you're driving yourselves places and you got to deal with everything sort of DIY style, it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah, everything about it. And you know what? It also just became like kind of watching things transfer into this, like, your band sort of has to become a brand in this day and age. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of like, okay, you have to announce the album and you have to announce the tour dates and you have to roll it out like this. A lot of it just became, I don't know. It's something that literally every modern band does. And it just started, I don't know. At the root of it, just something was just kind of like, man, this shit's just kind of fucking sucks. Like, I kind of don't like dealing with a lot of this stuff. And it just kind of took away from the reason that I started doing it when I was 14. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that when you're approaching 40 and you've been doing it since you were 14 and your head's in a different place and the world, things have changed a little bit. And fucking, I love a ton of modern bands. Like, at no point did I stop loving all this shit, but like, I don't know, just for me personally, it, kind of just, it shifted a little bit.
So was there some overlap between like the band stuff and sort of getting this rolling, and how did sort of this get, not so much the book, but Ancient Artifacts, the concept? How did this get going? How did you start? How did you start the journey?
It starts with record collecting, as everybody does. And I worked, and again, every band I did was full of punks who were record collectors. So on the road, we would stop at the record shop and everybody would run in and be fucking competitive and, but exciting. You know, it's that thrill of finding shit, trading records with your friends and all that kind of stuff. And I worked at a screen printing shop with all other record collecting punks. Shout out to TDT Screen Printing in Sayreville, New Jersey. That was really like every paycheck was like, oh, did you see that fucking first press filler that's on eBay right now? Like, you know, it starts like that. And then what happened when I was working there is there was a guy who did a fanzine, started back in like 80 in New Jersey. It was called Jersey Beat. And one of my bands was playing and I was wearing a Worst t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And he came up and he's like, how the fuck do you know who the Worst are? And, you know, we got chatting and he was like, I have a bunch of old records in my basement. And again, at that point, you know, we're literally the people I work with are like outbidding each other on records, you know, like total assholes. So I went and I checked out this guy's stuff and I was like, whoa. I was like, you know, if I put a couple paychecks into this, if I put a couple $1,000 into this collection, if I just give this dude all my money, then all of a sudden I can have the Minor Threat records. I could have a copy of the SOA record. I could have the Negative Approach EP, all this shit that he was getting for review. And that was the first time that I like bought a collection. And I was like, oh, and it was 30 Christmas mornings, you know, it was like, holy shit, like this is insane. And then I would, you know, if it was something I already had, or if it was something that I didn't want, you know, I would pull the few things aside and then I'd bring the rest of the shit into work and people would pick through them and I would sell stuff and I'd make some of my money back. And then shortly thereafter, I did it again. And it was kind of just this thrill. So, you know, that sort of eventually spilled into, hey, you know, I also have some old flyers. Hey, I have old t-shirts. I have this, that. And it just never really stopped, you know, especially like the paper shit is pretty endless, whether you're talking about flyers or posters or fanzines or whatever. And then you start talking about the original mock-ups that people use to make the flyer. The history element of it, like you were talking about, you know, wanting to know what came before. Sure. I was always pretty interested in that. You know, you'd see a band do a cover. You'd see a modern band when I was 15 and they would cover the Stiff Little Fingers and you're like, well, who is that? And then you research the band. And again, you know, like I was saying about the internet, that's where something that's nice is you can find out about anything. Nothing's, you know, for better or worse, there's not a ton of mystery to a lot of shit anymore. The research has been done, you know, so it gave me an opportunity to really kind of like get into a lot of those weird little crevices. And that's what so much of this paper, you know, like there's a lot of it.
Well, it's like an archaeological dig, right? We're musical archaeologists. And I think it's of course all fueled by our inherent love for music. Right. Yeah. And it's just, you know, first and foremost, I'm a music lover. I love music. And that's how I showed up here, you know, and like, that's take everything else away, you know, and I've mentioned this, that's how I did the Michael Alago film. He's just somebody that I just love music and I just related to him and felt I could tell his story. And, you know, there's a lot of us, you know, we just love music and first and foremost and what's behind it. And, you know, a question, you know, looking at some of the Nightbird stuff, and I guess, you know, with what you were doing, you were paying homage to a lot of the old stuff, right? I mean, obviously, Who Killed Marilyn, right? And so you were sort of steeped and rooted in sort of the history of all this, right?
Yeah, you know, and again, it's like when you do a band with your friends when you're a kid, it's different than starting, you know, we're discovering stuff together where, you know, playing music for your friends in the van, when you discover something new, and then you'd say, oh my God, did you ever hear the Testers 45? Did you ever hear whatever it was? And we would put stuff on and blow each other's minds, and then we would have to go home and chase down that record. And Mike, the guy right here, Mike Hunchback, he worked at Academy in New York for years, and he would say, oh, you know what, this single just can't, you know, like, so we were just fucking enthusiastic about it, you know. And again, it wasn't a secret. We fucking wore it on our sleeves, and we you know, that's the kind of music that we played. When we started the band, we just wanted to do a melodic punk band, but like, not like the modern version of melodic punk. We wanted to sound like Naked Ray Gun. We wanted to sound like the Adolescents, aggressive punk rock, but with some melody.
Who Kana says art direction Nightbirds was perfect. Did you art direct a lot of the stuff?
I guess you could use the term direct. A lot of it was stuff that I would tell somebody who was capable of actually making cool looking shit. Hey, I have this in my head, and then it would always come out cooler than whatever was in my head. We were fortunate to work with a lot of cool art people.
Right. Cool. That said, now that we got all that out of the way, right? Let's get into this a little bit. Now we're gonna do a little show and tell. We're gonna get to that. You sent me some great stuff. But let's set the table as far as the book goes. What was the impetus? To put out the book? How did it get started? Just give it, a little bit of the journey before we start getting into kind of what is inside the book.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I was buying collections, and it doesn't matter who it is, if it's somebody old who saw some shit and you're going through their box of old stuff, they're gonna have stories, So when I started buying collections from people who were in bands or did fanzines or did this and that, they would kind of, you'd go through the box and they would remember stuff in real time. And there was a couple specific incidences, like my family and I drove out to Maumee, Ohio, and Todd from the Necros, who was like the third hardcore drummer, ever. And going through his box of stuff, and I pulled out this chain, and he's like, "Oh, that chain was on my jackboots." And when I went to see Fear on Saturday Night Live, he's like, "I was the first stage dive. You could see that in there." And it's the kind of shit that, again, my life revolves around this shit. All my friends, so I would drive home and call them and be like, "Dude, check this shit out. Listen to this crazy fucking story.
I'm going deep."
Yeah, and it's again, these guys, especially the first generation hardcore people, they were there, they were living it. I think they know at this point how important it is for dorks like me. So they kind of they like, a lot of them like telling the stories, and they kind of just their brains open up, and it just I don't know. I just find it wildly fascinating, wildly cool. Yeah. And the more boxes I would dig into and the more people I would talk to, it's just fucking endless. It's an endless supply. And the thing that, I don't know, I guess, honestly, it was kind of like COVID that really just got me thinking about it in a couple different ways was, one, hardcore started 79, 80. Some of these people are in their 60s, 70s. People are getting old. I don't need to explain how life works. At some point, it is going to end. And these stories and these resources and these great people aren't going to be around forever, So the opportunity to talk, and it's not just punk. I mean, it was the same way. I don't know. I like talking to old people. I think, some of them. There's plenty of assholes out there, but old people have fun shit to talk about. And if you like history in any way, shape, or form, it just so happens that the combination of punk and history doesn't really get better than that. So when you have the opportunity to talk to these people and they're going through their stuff in real time, not to mention, I have a lot of times the opportunity to buy these collections. So that obviously as a collector is really thrilling when you know the stories behind the shit. And so what kind of kicked off the book, we were, for a short period of time, working on a television show. I was working on it with the new revamped Cream magazine. And when John from Negative Approach hit me up and he said that he had found some boxes of stuff and that he thought I should come take a look at it, I was like, yeah, let's go. So we went out to Detroit. We had a full-blown camera crew, and we shot a pilot for a show. And then we ended up doing 4 of those. The show is currently temporarily shelved. You can ask Cream about that because I don't know what the fuck is going on. But
Wasn't there a Cream doc? Didn't Scott Crawford was Scott Crawford involved with the Cream doc? And is this something totally different?
There is absolutely a Cream doc.
Okay.
Whether Scott may or may not, I would have to. That's an easy Googleable.
Yeah.
Thing. But yeah. So we shot some episodes of that, and I had all this stuff, and while that was kind of stalling out, I kind of wanted these things to happen at the same time. I wanted to do a book at the same time that we were working on this show. And then I just ended up putting all my focus on the book for 18 months or however.
Was there a precursor? I mean, it just seems like right out of the gate, this has some weight to it. So, was there a precursor? Was there a fan or anything, or you just knew this is what we want to do?
No, there was a lot of shit in a tight period of time. And again, the book is kind of a show and tell thing. It goes in a chronological order. There's 3 chapters. There's the Midwest, mainly, Detroit and Ohio. There's New York and there's DC. And primarily that's because when we were going out shooting these episodes of the show, it was sort of coincidental that I got, within a pretty small frame of time, a couple really incredible DC collections, a couple really incredible New York.
And we're going to look at that stuff. It's incredible.
So once I kind of broke it down like that in my brain, and I was like, oh shit, there's 3 really great stories to tell here. And there's some really interesting segues between the early Midwest hardcore scene, the early DC, the early New York shit. So it kind of just really came together in a very organic manner that I was just like, man, I think there's enough here to make something kind of interesting. And then I did my first run through of the whole thing and laid it out how I thought it could be. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to dive into my collection and pull some more stuff to kind of fill this gap, or I need to interview this person or that person. The interviews started with people that I had bought collections from. So the initial, it's like, all right, I bought from these 10 people, so I'm going to interview them about their stuff. And then you kind of start filling in the holes and going.
That is exactly what I call it when making a film. We got to fill some potholes.
Yeah,
that's exactly. And I was talking to my dad this morning, who's a big fan of New York hardcore, big fan of the show, and he's a film director, and he's been on a bunch of times. And I was explaining to him, he's like, "Who's on the show today?" And I was explaining to him that, believe it or not, Pop, the stuff. The hardcore stuff, now is like the way that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has, that sort of exists. A lot of the early hardcore stuff has an incredible value, not so much monetary, but it's incredibly valued at this point. And I was explaining, what you do. He said it's not just about flyers. He gets his hands on the amps and the guitar cases and the leather jackets. It's really the culture, the whole thing. So
yeah, anything with a story, And again, it's like, I'm not saying other people should care. I'm not saying other people should be interested. I care. I'm interested.
Yeah.
So I made a book, and if people like it, cool. If they don't, fuck them.
So that said, let's start let's start with this, because you mentioned the Midwest stuff. So I'm going to start with that, and some stuff you sent me, you show back to back, and I hope I got it right. But we'll kick off with this. Explain kind of what this is. And
yeah, so this is more so than there being a story behind it. It's just the simple insaneness that this exists. So this is where Barry from the Necros was penning all the lyrics to the Sex Drive EP and to the IQ 32 record. And that's just a great example of how does something like that survive 40 some odd years? It's paper. I mean, all you need to do is dump 1 cup of water on it, 1 small fire, and it's just gone forever. So the paper stuff I think is really exciting, just for the sheer fact that it's and it didn't belong to just anybody. It belonged to a punk who was probably a sloppy, not necessarily, but there's parties, there's all sorts of shit. And I just love the fact that, this exists. And again, like Necros were an early one for me. When I was like 16 or 17, my friend Evan had this CD with like everything that they recorded on it. And I just thought it was like brilliant, just immediately kind of connected to the Midwest stuff. Because it was also kind of funny. Like those guys had a good sense of humor. Yeah, so these are the Negative Approach notebooks. And this spans all the way to Static, the pre-Negative Approach band, and then through the first Negative Approach EP, and then into the Tied Down album. Yeah. There's stuff for all that.
And so the first stuff came from Barry. This stuff came from this stuff, and this is being a big fan of this Negative Approach stuff. Here's the actual Tie Down lyrics. This stuff came from John Brannon.
Yeah. The other stuff, the notebook wasn't from Barry. Somebody else ended up with it. Maybe Todd ended up with it, and I got it from Todd. But this, the Negative Approach stuff was from when I went out to John's. And I mean, again, like that's the Mona Lisa to me, like that's it. It's like and I'm not saying other people should feel the same way. That's just too fucking cool.
Yeah. And like you said, just incredible that here we are almost 50 years later and it exists.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, when these bands started, it wasn't.
Can't tell no one. Those are the lyrics that can't tell no one. That is so friggin' awesome.
Yeah. Like I just remember listening.
Yeah.
Driving to high school and just listening to that shit and being like, this world isn't for me. I want to go on tour. I want to go to shows. I want to like hang out. Like you find your thing, and it's like, that was like the anthem for discovering this whole other world.
Negative Approach was huge in my world when this stuff came out. The Process of Elimination EP, and then of course the Negative Approach 7-inch, and then the 12-inch Tie Down. In my world, Negative Approach was a huge influence on me as a front man, and the stuff I did with the High and the Mighty and later Antidote, and even now with Incendiary Device. I always loved Negative Approach.
It's hard to find a better EP than the Negative Approach EP. I mean, if you like hardcore, I mean, you could throw out a ton of stuff. Minor Threat Filler, there's stuff. But man, it is. It's pretty untouchable.
Let's go here. This is really interesting. Let's go here, and we'll go through this, and then I'll take a little bit of a sponsor break. But this one is incredible. Here we go, and I immediately, sort of recognized this. When I saw it, it just thumbing through the book. Could this be Denise Mercedes' guitar case when she was in the Stimulators?
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. And she hit me up and she's like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to throw this in the dumpster, and I don't know, like, is this something?" And she sent me the pictures of it, and I was like, "What the fuck, man? Like, how does this?" And what's crazy? Do you have the other side of it?
Yes, I do.
So I always thought it was interesting that the Stimulators went to Ireland. It was like really early on. A lot of New York bands weren't touring that much. You don't hear about like the Mad touring or a lot of that stuff. But the Stimulators go over to Ireland, and a young Harley Flanagan was sitting in the back of the car that they were driving around Ireland with his aunt's guitar case, and he was writing all over it. So like this is, I can't say that it's the first or, whatever, but this is like a really early example of like the skinhead movement coming to America, and that's historical, I think that really, really, really wild. And my favorite part of this is the Stimulators tour was not bad at all. It was great. It's just fucking awesome.
I'm trying to find it in the book, but because I just want to explain to everybody that in the book, when you pick up the book, there's comments, there's comments from people. So you have Denise, commenting on and giving you perspective on this. So it's not just photos drifting in space. There's you did a great. Oh, here it is. Here, let me. So what you have is, you could see you have Denise talking about the pictures that we just showed you, and DC guys, and there's a lot of perspective from the people who lived it, and the people who owned the ephemera, correct?
Yeah. I mean, like, it's the kind of thing where you don't necessarily have to be a collector. Like, if stuff is too rich and you're like, you know what, I don't need to own an original of this, or I don't need to, like, you could enjoy it just because it has the stories. I kind of just wanted to make it for anybody to dig. And actually, this guy Chris Spikey here, that guitar case is currently in the Vegas museum. I'm one of the founders of that museum in Vegas. And yeah, that's currently on display. And that was another thing. Like, when I got involved, I was like, do work from the inside. It's like, I want shit that I think is cool to be represented, and not just, fucking 90s California, bullshit.
Yeah.
So, I was like, man, a fucking Stimulators guitar case with history about bringing the skinhead movement to America. I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, that, people need to see it. And
this is important stuff.
It is to me.
I do believe that.
Yeah.
Paul Kastabi, who, hey, I'm going to reach out to you, Paul, one of these days about coming on the show, says, I have the original 1/2-inch 8-track tape recorder and mixdown deck from Don Fury Studios. I still try to use it in my studio. That thing, I think that's what they recorded Victim in Pain on, and all that.
The amazing thing about that, and still trying to use it, I do a lot of that same stuff. A lot of people try to give everything the white glove treatment, and I get it to a degree, but I think you need to kind of walk your own line. So it's like, when I got those Cause for Alarm screens, like the original screens that they would use to screen print T-shirts on the road, I was like, I could put them on display and it's nice and people get to look at them and all that kind of shit. And you put them in a book. That's great. I was like, but man, there might still be some life in these. And when I did the release parties, we busted out those screens with the band's permission. People brought their own T-shirts and everybody got to fucking screen print off the original screens. So, that's like Kiss isn't going to show up at the Kiss festival with their original screens and do shit like that.
Boom.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's part of this whole thing, So if a guitar is still usable, then fucking play it. If a piece of recording device or whatever is still usable, fucking record with it. That's the beauty of some of this stuff to me. You don't want to see something break. Obviously, it has historical significance, especially. Like, I own it. I don't want the fucking thing to break. But
when I saw the flyer for this, I immediately thought Alex Kynan must have come up with the screens, the old screens, because there's no way they made new screens for this stuff. I was like, that's cool.
No, yeah.
Knowing Alex, because I know Alex a little bit, he probably still has all the stuff.
Well, he did. Now I have all the stuff because I bought his collection. But so Keith made those screens in 83 or whatever, and I have like the Statue of Liberty one. I have that one, and then I have the logo one. And I had the logo one there just in case the screen busted, because so many people were like, "That's not going to work. You're going to bust the screen 3 shirts in." And I was like, you know what? If I do, I do, and it sucks. I was like, but man, how fucking cool if you can roll up and, a lot of people, especially like, a lot of older folks attend these kind of things and it's not like this is new to them, but there's a lot of younger kids too. I really
the line was out the door. When I parked the car and I was coming down the street in Brooklyn, now I brought a white T-shirt. I thought it would be a cool thing to have. And as I was walking up the street, I saw two kids. They looked like they were 14, 15 years old. They both had cause for just new, and they were drying. They were like trying to dry them coming up the street. I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that was the way I felt about it too. I think just being able to see like, and then we did the panel. So Alex explains, he's like, you know what? We would play a show with DRI and MDC. And then the next day in Kentucky, we would go outside and screen. We'd buy shirts at the thrift store, turn them inside out, screen print them and leave them out in the sun to dry. Something, because I did that shit when I was doing my first band, and other people can do it moving forward. There's certain things that are just, man, it's like the precipice of why we do all this shit, the whole DIY. It's like, you still do it. It's like, you don't need a major label to give you tour support to print 2,500 t-shirts. Right. Fucking, take screen printing, learn how to do it. Watch a YouTube video, learn how to do it, and make some fucking t-shirts. I mean, I just think there's just something so cool about that.
And let me just say that this here, for those wondering what I'm showing here, this is Alex Kynan from Cause for Alarm, and later, of course, Agnostic Front. He played on the Agnostic Front Cause for Alarm album. And Jack Rabbit, who was a show on this, who was a guest on the show a couple weeks ago. This was at your event in Brooklyn, and you did a great panel. I have another picture here. Let me show this other picture. This is, you had Paul Bearer. You had Johnny Waste, and you sort of had like, an open forum here, and you were just talking about this was at TVI a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
My only regret about this was not having any women on the panel. I had Denise Mercedes, who was, I think she's going through like some spinal health issues, so she was going to take part in it with Nick Martin, and I love all these guys; they were great. But it was.
You always want to balance it out a little bit these days, and have some gals.
Yeah, for the sake of perspective, and I think that it's something that for a long time wasn't paid enough attention to, and once you kind of recognize it, you're like, oh Jesus Christ, I want to be on the right side of this, not the fucking shitty side, but.
Let's do this one little flyer here. I'm not sure the context of this, and then we'll take a quick sponsor break. This is a Beastie Boys flyer at Max's. Dare I say, is this the first Beastie Boys show ever?
It is not. It's probably maybe like the 4th or 5th Beastie Boys show, but this is the last show at Max's Kansas City where Beastie Boys opened for the Bad Brains. And honestly, like, this is just again, like, I think I threw a couple paper things in here just because it gets me really excited. And this had belonged to Steve Poss, who sadly passed away a couple years ago. But, again, just in a way, when I purchased that stuff, like, I didn't want to lock it in the basement and be like, haha, it's mine. Like, I don't know. That was kind of part of doing the book too, is it's like, I wanted to share cool shit so people can see it and enjoy it. And that's this one. Of course, I just have a big archive. I don't own the originals, but this is that show. This is just sort of, it's out there in the world, but this is that show. Yeah. Good. That's one of my favorite flyers ever. Great. And I think they're all individually colored. Man, I wonder who did that. All the New York nerds you have watching. Who made that?
Who colored this with a couple of colors, green, yellow, red,
Probably Bad Brains. I mean, why? I don't know who else would have.
Yeah. Or
but
could be.
But too cool. Yeah, that Bert and Ernie flyer. Like, it's just goddamn. Yeah.
That said, let me take a sponsor break for a couple minutes, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Minor Threat and the Teen Idols and the Dead Boys and so on and so forth. So see you back in a couple minutes. There you go. Our guest today is Brian Gorsegner of Ancient Artifacts. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Yo, hang in there. We're going to do Minor Threat. We got some really great stuff. Dead Boys, Cynthia Ross's stuff. This is going to be great. Let's do some sponsor stuff. Here we go. Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Will that be cash or in debt?
Do you mean debit?
Yes. Sorry. Another eternally satisfied customer.
Peace, what it do? Welcome to NYHC Comics at 117 Main Street, Dobbs, Surrey, New York. I'm Debo the Pro with my homie
Lee Farley.
Welcome to the spot. Specializing in yesterday's and today's comic books, rare CGCs, toys, collectibles.
Got skateboards, old school tapes, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer.
Video games, original art pieces by your favorite New York City and worldwide artists. Let's go. Skate decks all day, baby.
We also have the young reader section here for like 10 and under. Pops. People love the Pops.
Star Wars! We are New York hardcore. We always rep the scene. Let's get it on.
And we're back. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. I want to talk about a couple of upcoming shows. 1 week from today, Chris Enriquez is back from tour, and he will be on the show. A week after that, celebrating the release of his new book, Vinny Stigma and Howie Abrams will be on the show. A couple days after that, talking about Max's Kansas City, we got Donna Destry on the show. I'm excited about this one. Andrew Combust on Sunday, September 22nd. Joey Chithead. Sunday, September 29th. We've been chasing him around for a couple years. Danny Lilker, fan favorite here at the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Danny Lilker will be back on the show talking about the second printing of his book. Listen, it seems lately like I'm like the book dude. Like a lot of book stuff. You got a book coming out, come on the show. Lou Morales will be on the show. He has a book out called Brooklyn Skinhead. He'll be on Wednesday, October 9th. And we were just talking about Alex Kynan will be on the show November 3rd. And of course, just announced the 350th episode is Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth. There's a couple of other bangers that I'm about to announce this week. Keep an eye out for it. Also, please support the show. As you know, there's a Patreon page. There's a PayPal. I want to shout out my latest patrons, Margaret Stombach, Jose Leston, and Danny Nysk. Danny NYNSK. New patrons, show needs support now more than ever. Please, there's a PayPal address there. I want to shout out Eddie Ahmed, who helped out on the last one, but please throw your hat in the ring. Support this friggin' show. Support the show that supports you, so we can keep doing what we're doing. And we got a lot going on. Just looking for, is that right? Thurston Moore lives in your hometown in London? I didn't realize he was in London. Really? I thought he was in the States. Okay. That said, if you can, please give the show a thumbs up, a like. That helps. Follow the show. Listen, if you're new to the show, pick up your communication device right now. Follow the show on Instagram at Stone Films NYC. Also, if you're watching a rerun, there's a subscribe button there. Subscribe to the YouTube page, to the Stone Films NYC YouTube page. That said, I think we covered the bases here. No kidding. Well, he's going to be doing the show from London. So that said, let's clear the deck and let's bring our guest back on. Hey, man.
Hey, look what I found.
Oh, wow. Is that an original?
Come on, man.
That is the flyer.
Yeah, but yours is different. It's got a different colorway to it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The thing up top is, wow. Where'd that come from?
That might have been from Poss as well, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It definitely was.
That makes sense.
He did this weird thing where if the corner had like a tack hole in it, he would evenly cut so it had a nice straight. So I can always, after a while, I started putting little stickers on all my stuff so I knew where it came from. But I could tell his stuff because it has like the razor blade chop offs in the corner, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I saw a while back, I think, which sort of put you on my radar screen. I saw you had an Antidote set list in my handwriting from definitely one of the first shows I ever sang with Antidote. That was either at Rock Hotel or CBGB, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's my handwriting!" And there was like a song on there that like we never recorded. It's like, wow,
yeah,
cool shit.
Yeah, you know? Starts to jog the memory, right?
Yeah. Speaking of set lists, this one caught my eye. This not just for the set list itself, but I love sort of the accoutrements to it. Could you explain what this is?
Yeah, this is a pretty early Cromags set. The thing that I just love about this is the Adidas footprint on the top corner and then the boot print on the bottom. Because this is probably New York 85, 86, and it's like, again, you know, like New York City, mid 80s. Yeah. What says it more than an Adidas print on one side and a boot print on the other? It's just fucking, just oozes cool.
And there's some interesting songs on here, like 12XU is on it. Cromags played 12XU. I see Everybody's Gonna Die. That was just on the demo, on the original Cromags demo. Not sure what Kali Yuga is, the second song. Maybe that became something. Yeah, that became something different. Yeah. Do Unto Others. Yeah. That could be Don't Tread on Me. Oh, no, that's on there already. But any idea what show this is from?
Yeah, this is from when they supported the Bad Brains at Rock Hotel.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was 80. Yeah, 86.
Yeah. This one's in the book, and it's got some good Paris commentary.
Cool. I'm kind of grabbing a couple of the one-offs before we you know what? Let's go here because this one this is one of the few, because pretty much everything in the book I looked at, I was like, oh shit, you know. This one here took me some figuring, you know.
Yeah, this is
deep. This one's deep.
Yeah, this is my favorite thing that's in the book, kind of just because of the happenstance in it being in there. So, you know, each of these chapters, they kind of go chronologically. So the New York chapter, you know, they all start like 77, 78-ish. So the New York chapter starts, you mentioned Cynthia Ross, a lot of stuff that I got from Cynthia, a lot of like Dead Boys stuff, you know, really cool early New York shit. And it was kind of explained to me that in New York City, in closing in on the end of the 70s, the beginning of the 80s, there was a shift. A lot of it was like a drug shift, you know, like the choice of drugs in the 70s was heroin, and it shifted over when the crack epidemic was becoming a really big thing at the top of the 80s, and things were just getting more violent. And Johnny Blitz from the Dead Boys got stabbed, and they end up doing you know, yeah, they did the benefit show for him. So what that letter is I went to LA and I bought some of the stuff that had belonged to Howie Pyro, who also sadly passed away last year. And I didn't even see the note until I got back. On the other side of this is a Blondie flyer, but I came and I flipped it over and I was reading, and you see who it's written to, and immediately you connect it to the Screamers, and you're like, all right, so this is a letter to the Screamers, and then Love Brian, and as you read the note, you realize that it's Kid Congo Powers from the Cramps before he was in the films. And I mean, I don't know this by heart, but hi there again. Time to report NY happenings. Johnny Blitz, Dead Boys got stabbed. He mentions the bands that are playing: the Ramones, Blondie, Dead Boys, Cramps. Some of the lesser known but great, the Blessed, Howie's band, Contortions. But man, talk about the beginning of a counterculture. He's talking about a show that is going to happen in a couple days that includes the Ramones, Blondie, the Dead Boys, and the Cramps.
And this is one of those things. This is like when I was gifted the archive of 3,500 negatives. Sure, there's the stuff that's on the surface. Like, okay, this is a Generation X show, and then at the end of the roll, there's these 3 shots of a band that I couldn't figure out. It's those things that are like, holy shit, and it turns out to be Crass, and it's like, holy shit, no photos ever existed. It was their 3rd show ever. Crass got in touch with me. I gave him the photo. I gave him copy, to use it, to use the photos for their book, because I'm using, and I got comments for my book. But I love how there's always those couple of things that are like, this is on the back of the Blondie flyer, Well,
it's kind of, to me, it's like, that's what it's all about. And I don't post a lot of letters. I just, a lot of that stuff was never intended for public consumption. It was a time before social media, but that was one that I was just like, man, I was like, this again, like, just talk about a time capsule where it's like, here's a letter where he's talking. And I had stuff from Cynthia that kind of led right into the Johnny Blitz thing. And it was kind of a nice segue.
Like this stuff,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So some of this is Stiv Bader's stuff. That's like, his skull necklace. That's his earring from Lords of the New Church era. The Lord's dagger, and then some Dead Boys era, like the Red Eagle. That really weird looking Dead Boys badge with the Band-Aid. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that thing, but it's kind of cool. The badge, that was one that he would, with the one with him and Cheetah. Like, man, yeah, that shit is just.
And Cynthia's been a guest on the show. I know Cynthia a little bit. And I think it's fair to say, like, I think she's just really thrilled that some of Stiv's stuff found a home and found a place that it's appreciated. I'm assuming she was just really thrilled to move this stuff down the line to somebody who's just going to cherish it.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, like, that really is a big part of it. And it's like, I shot one of the episodes for the Cream thing with Cynthia, and again, like, just to be able to talk to her and talk to these people about this stuff and just the stories, and I just appreciate the fact so much that they held on to it all these years. Clearly it was important to them even before it was a counterculture phenomenon that would like go on to, people like me to be in bands for years and years. Like, this is stuff that she was living real time when she was a kid, and it was important enough for her to hold on to for all these years.
Yeah. I love this Dead Boys at NYU.
Yeah, and this was the record release show for Young, Loud, and Snotty.
Yeah.
The best part of this is free beer, soda, pretzels, and potato chips.
That's awesome.
With Sire recording artists. I mean, like, just the idea. And there was a funny article that came out like the day or two after, talking about how it was just chaos at NYU and students were throwing up and they had no idea what was going on. And it's like, oh my God.
Cynthia had this contract. This is a Dead Boys. This is the contract with the Dead Boys and NYU.
Yeah, this wasn't from her. This was from Crackers, from Art, who maybe helped put the show on or something. But yeah, like, signed by their manager, Hilly Crystal. Right. And yeah, I mean, $400 and and a bottle of Jack. Like that's what it took to get the Dead Boys to play the record release show for one of the greatest punk albums of all time at NYU.
I agree with you. To me, I always say this: talk about bands that are punk, and all these other, Television, Blondie. Yo, the Dead Boys were punk. That was a punk band. Those guys. That was a punk band. The Dead Boys were about as punk as the Sex Pistols.
Yeah. I mean,
the Dead Boys. Excuse me. I almost could say the Dead Boys was the first, one of the first and greatest American punk bands.
Yep, no, I'm right there with you. We did as one of the release parties we did. There was a tattoo artist who was doing like off a sheet of flash that we put together, and I got this Dead Boys tattoo. And that's like,
oh yeah.
So I don't know, like I love Cynthia Ross to death, and it's like I hope that you sell somebody your shit and then they go get something tattooed off of it because it means that much to them, and it does, the connection to those. The connection from that stuff to those records and the impact that it had on the whole thing, I don't know. It's just
Cynthia is really. It's safe to say she's like one, if not the only, real keeper of the flame of Steve Bader's. She really was there. She lived it.
Yeah, and again, there's stories, but having the people that were there with the stuff and the stories and it all, like here's a good example, that God Save the Queen badge, she talked about because Sid, they were living at the Chelsea, and Sid and Nancy lived maybe down the hall or upstairs or something, and when Nancy would go to work, Sid Vicious would come stay with them for the afternoon. They would like babysit him, and I don't know, he would like draw with crayons and watch cartoons, do whatever Sid Vicious did. But, like that's so incredible to think about.
This is that's the original Blondie button. I know that because I'm very close with Philip Leeds, whose dad, Peter Leeds, managed Blondie. So I've seen that button before he had it. And of course, Hurrah was a club right here in my neighborhood. Hurrah was a club where in 1978 I saw Suicide, and unbeknownst to me, a band called Misfits opened up for them. I have no recollection of Misfits, but I do vividly remember seeing Suicide in 1978. But that's right here in my neighborhood. But Club 57 was Irving Plaza.
Right. Yeah, I know it had a couple. That one I always thought was interesting because you'd see shows like presented at Club 57.
Right.
Yeah, that one took a little bit to wrap my head around, but
okay, this let's do there's this, there's this one which I have seen before. It was sort of I've seen this, incredible. As I understand it, this is a Minor Threat set list from Great Gildersleeves.
That's correct. Now, the reason it is here and the reason that I ended up sticking it in my book, what I thought was so cool about this, do you have the other one handy?
That's what I was getting to. This one is cool. I've seen this one before. This is the Lyle. And then in the book, I was like, wow. I wonder if there's, beyond this, are there two more? This is the drummer Jeff one.
So what's so cool about this is I got one of these from Alex Kynan from Cause for Alarm and Agnostic Front, and I got the other from Mark Ryan from Super Touch, Death Before Dishonor. So thinking about those guys watching the show at Gildersleeves, and again, one of their contemporaries, they were doing bands, Minor Threat, but they were so fucking stoked on it that each of them had to go grab set lists from different sides of the stage. And then 40 some odd years later, to find each of those set lists from the same show from two different people, that's just the kind of like small world shit that I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember I got Mark's, and then when I was digging through Alex's stuff, I was just like, dude, what the fuck? I was like, awesome. I got one of these like 6 months ago from Mark, and he was like, yeah, everybody loved Minor Threat, so. Yeah, I don't know.
this Jeff one is just mint, bro. I mean, I can't help but wonder, and you know what? Maybe I'll ask Ian next time I see him. Was there an Ian one? Is there a Brian one?
There's got to be, yeah.
Now, while we're kind of, I guess we're kind of going back a little bit, and while we're on the subject of sort of, Minor Threat, backing it up a little bit to Ian, to the first band he was in, which was Discord release number 1. What is this?
So I got to go to the basement of Nathan Straycheck, who was the vocalist of the Teen Idols. He was also in Youth Brigade. And like when I was in his basement, like the Bad Brains had practiced there. It was where they wrote Sailin' On. SOA had their first practice there, the first time that Henry sang with them. And his basement was just like a bunch of untouched boxes that were still sitting the same way that my shit is all sitting in my parents' basement, except he was in, he started Discord Records, and I just found this in a box, and I'm like, what the? Oh, he's like, oh yeah, shit. And he looks at it for a second. He's like, yeah, this is from the first show. We actually played this show in this basement. And then, he took me around the corner. Yeah, he took me around the corner to where like the Slinkies played their one and only show. The pre-Teen Idols band. And again, like to him, it was just kids doing kid shit the same way that it was when I was a kid. But they came first. This is the beginning. This shit's fucking insane. This was from Nathan's basement also. This is the first Bad Brains show. The first ever Bad Brains show. And it's like, you can't find an image of this anywhere. And I sent this to a couple of those dudes that were definitely there being like, can you verify this?
Right.
Even like, I want to say even Henry was like, I'd never saw it before.
Right.
And it was just in a box in Nathan's basement where it has been sitting. And it was fucking insane. They had water damage there at one point. They had like pipes burst. So he's like, oh, we had to throw a bunch of shit away.
Wow.
So I'm like, man, again, like some of this stuff is just so temperamental. So it's like,
is this like sort of is this where you like rip off a tab, like, so you have the address? Is that what why it's all, is that like where you like, if, painter, you pull, is this the concept here?
Looks like it. Yeah. I mean, I can't speak to that because I didn't make it, but it sure does. Yeah. It sure does look like it. And
that's fucking great, man. And also in the Teen Idols. I gotta say on this one here, on this, knowing, kind of being a fan of the early, of course, all the early Discord stuff. Wait, this is not. Hold on, not what I'm looking for.
Well, that was another Nathan basement find, which is also pretty.
Well, I'll get to that. Hold on, I just want to comment on this real quick. All the Teen Idol stuff, Get Up and Go, Stepping Stone, I Drink Milk, Kami Song, Sneakers, Deadhead, Take Another Toke, Deadhead, you're a fucking joke. Friend of the Devil, Who You Trying to Kid? Friends of the Devil Are Dead Like Sid. I mean, these are like the beloved. This is Discord number 1. This is ground zero right here. Really great.
Yeah, my favorite of all that stuff is the Teen Idols demo 7-inch. Not to be like I like the demo version of that stuff. It's almost like early pop punk. It's so poppy and it's so like pogo-y punk. And people talk about that transition from when it was like everybody was kind of pogoing and it was happy and Madam's Organ. And then it was like in the span of a very short period of time where all of a sudden everything just got cranked to 11. And bands just started playing as quick as they possibly could. And
what's this?
So this was a mixtape that Ian made for Nathan. I want to say 79. So this is just cool to be like, hey, you want to know what the direct influence on the Teen Idols and Minor Threat and everything else? You want to know what those guys in DC were listening to? Here you go. Like, here's, these records probably came from Yesterday and Today and then went on Ian's turntable and then he turned out a mixtape and gave it
wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have
UK subs, I Live in a Car.
Yeah.
zeros.
I put all this
Bills,
stuff in a YouTube.
zeros.
I put all this stuff in a YouTube playlist that I gotta
Did you?
post up just for the sake of being like Ian's mixtape.
Yeah, it's pretty great. That's fantastic. I think I might have to do that.
Yeah, I wasn't born till '83, so that thing, by the time I was born, that tape had already been around for 4 years.
Sort of, kind of one shot. Not sure what these are. Sort of like a little out of context, but maybe you can comment on them.
Yeah, this is Bruce from Adrenaline OD's shirt from the cover of Wacky Hijinks. Like, still, you could see in like the bottom, it still has like the pie. Like those guys are covered in pie on the cover of the record. And I'm a New Jersey guy, so that record, that's a big one for me.
Okay, got it. And here's another one, which I'm assuming this came from Johnny Kelly from Urban Waste.
Yeah, that was just another one where the story behind that was like they didn't even have a full lineup. Like the band wasn't even like ready to go yet. And
right.
Just the excitement, when they were 13 or 14 or whatever, the excitement of doing a band, they needed to get the word out there. So they made these flyers and they put them at the bottom when you're walking down the steps to go into the subway in like 82 or whatever. You get to the bottom of the steps and he's like, there's the A train, there's the this train, and there's the Urban Waste. And it's like, man, that shit's just too fucking cool.
Yeah, I did that when I was in my first band too. Coming soon,
Yeah.
Coming soon. Yeah. So there's that. And let me see. Here's a great. This is a great page from the book itself, with a Bad Brains theme to it. How did you sort of group stuff together?
So there's the 3 chapters, which are based on region. This one I put in between the DC chapter into the New York chapter for obvious reasons. We're talking about the Bad Brains. And then it was, and then it goes in chronological order from there.
Yeah.
So, but this one I think that's what I did. Yeah, this is the beginning of chapter 3. So this is the beginning of the New York chapter, but I also thought it was kind of fitting to be, you're exiting the DC chapter.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
And I want to say, anybody watching the show, you can pick up the book at deathwishinc.com/product/ancient artifacts book. Available right now. Is it still in pre-order or has the first printing shipped yet?
Dude, what's fucking crazy is, so like we started doing pre-orders, I don't know, at this point, maybe like a month and change ago or whatever. And we put up pre-orders on a Friday. We were going to run pre-orders for 3 days or whatever. And then however many orders we got were going to come with that version. And then we sold we did 1,500 copies in the first edition. We sold the entire first edition, like straight out of the gate with pre-orders. So then we put the second edition on pre-order, and we only put that up recently, and we only did 1,000, and we're already 700 copies through those. The thing that's so we had some copy, it's being printed in Lithuania, and I didn't think about how expensive it was. You're holding it. It's got a little bit of weight to it. It's like,
it does. And
so,
it's really beautifully designed too.
Yeah, Jason Noto, who Morning Breath, also just like he does a lot of great design work for Foo Fighters and Queens of the Stone Age and shit like that. He did all the Nirvana reissues. He did the cover image. But yeah, so it's coming from Lithuania. So everybody that pre-ordered it, those copies are coming by boat. So the boat got to New York last week. Then they're trucking up to Boston, where Death Wish is, and pre-orders are going to start shipping at the top of this week. But people are like, hey, because we had some copies flown over, which was like super fucking expensive for the book release parties. Because otherwise,
and that's where I got one.
Yeah.
I went to the event at TVI, but Yeah. So let me take a quick sponsor break, quick one, and we'll come back and we'll take some questions from around the world, and we'll do a little bit more show and tell. And just this is a quick one, all right? I'll see you in a minute.
Do it up.
That's right. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by blah, 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 and Mad Vintage. Mad Vintage buys, sells, and collects band shirts, primarily hardcore. The DIY operation was started and is operated by a hardcore kid who just loves collecting and eventually got into vintage clothing, specifically the realm of vintage band shirts. They are always looking to buy out collections to either keep, sell, or trade. New shirts added daily at www.madvintage.com and posted on Instagram. Dig deep into that closet of crap. Reach out to them. Help me help you. www.madvintage.com. Last but not least, my friend and yours, George at 126 Hardcore Clothing, a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They're about being spontaneous. They're about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them and ramp up your game at www.126clothing.com. That said, any questions you have for Brian from Ancient Artifacts, post them up. Post them up now. Oops. Ouch. I want to mention a couple of events that are coming up that I will be involved in. Friday, September 6th. That is a week from Friday. I will be down in Philly at Creep Records. I will be moderating the Ray Capel From Punk to Monk book event. Attention, Philly denizens. I will see you down there. Couple days after that, on April 12th, the guest we just had on the show, Daniel Rachel, will be in New York. He's doing a two-tone record story tour for his book, and I will be moderating the book event at Rough Trade in Rockefeller Center on Thursday, September 12th. Back at the Barry Electric, free all-ages Sunday matinee, Scream, Rebelmatic, Butterbrain with Angelo Moore of Fishbone, The Errorists and Lake Lanier with DJ Sid the Kid. If it's free, it is for me. Saturday, October 12th, yes, a rare ID show outside of the New York City subway system. RBNX, Incendiary Device, it's going to jump off tonight. Crazy Eddie, Redwoods, featuring Colton Schuler, Danny Schuler from Biohazard Sun, Leave It Behind, and Prize Fighter. We will be up at Quinn's Pins, up in Middletown, New York. Hometown of Sean Brennan, ID guitar player. This is going down Sunday, the next day at Berlin. The venue has been changed to Berlin. ID, Winterwolf, Midnight Foolishness, The Phoenix Within, and Gunk. That is Sundays, October 13th at Berlin. Friday, October 25th, I will be moderating the Danny Lilker book signing at Generation Records. And then Saturday, December 7th, up at Bridge 9 Records, I am moderating the Vinny Stigma book event along with Howie Abrams. And then last but not least, Women of the Pit presents the Holiday Slamboree at the Bowery Electric. There's a coat drive. It is their annual coat drive. Non-residents, My War, Fire is Murder, Shoot the Five, and Serial Poets. That is Women of the Pit. Right, Lori Dawn? Yes. Nod your head. Yeah, thumbs up. There you go. So that said, I think I covered everything. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am accessible. Love to hear from you. I shouted out my new patrons. Once again, I just want to mention, please support the show. If you're thinking about it, if you've been a lurker for a while, please come in from the dark. Support the show. We need your support. Enough of that. Let's make sure everybody's okay. Are we ever getting a Boston ID show? We're heading that way. We're about to announce Connecticut. Boston's going to happen. Sean McNally's got his eye out. We will play Boston again. Absolutely. Absolutely, Rick. It will happen. That said, let's bring our guest back on. Hey, man.
Hi.
Let's see. What does this mean, Pat Baldwin? Does he see? Do you see? Directed to you, Brian. Does he see obsessive anal record collectors, completists, and creative musicians as opposing personality types? I don't know what that means.
It certainly can be. I mean, I don't consider myself personally an obsessive anal record collector completist. When I started getting into stuff, I was very competitive about shit, and then you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't have enough money to keep this up. So then, like I said, I started buying collections, and now it's kind of like the stuff that I come across. As stuff comes to me, I keep the stuff that I'm really excited about, and I don't get, like I haven't bought anything on eBay or Discogs or anything like that in a very long time.
I would think not at this point, because you're that guy, and you're like, you're looking for King Tut's tomb here. You're not getting on eBay looking for a record. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that you operate at this point. You're trying to connect with people and basically, deal with them regarding their archives.
It's a different thing, and it's like, I have nothing against the really OCD record collector. Do I think there might be creative? Do I see obsessive as a person, opposing personality types? Sure, there absolutely can be, but I think there's enough. The world can handle all different kinds of people. I think people get a little ridiculous with it. I'll never be one of those, I need 20 different variations of some modern repress. I think a lot of labels do it out of necessity, because if you want, especially, a lot of the older legacy bands need X amount of dollars to do something. You can only sell so many copies because only this many people care. But if you have people that are going to buy 10 copies of the fucking thing, where do you draw the line? It's like, do you cater to it to keep a project alive? I guess so. I'm not one of those people. Like, I don't care about that shit, but like, I guess I get it to some degree. Does it kind of leave a fucking bad taste in my mouth? But again, I don't know. Who is anybody to judge what people do with their fucking money? Sure. At the end of the day, I don't know.
Speaking of Boston, and if we're going to play up there, I mentioned Sean McNally. What's happening, brother? Such cool archives. Does Brian only collect and document the history and items, or are some for sale as well to help fund his quest for other items? Good question.
Yeah, it's literally exactly what I do. I mean, I've never had pockets deep enough to keep everything, and I've gotten some slack for that, and I totally understand it. Again, I think it's something that you need to do, or I will speak for myself, with my own values. Like, you kind of have to steer these situations in a certain way where it's like, I try to keep core pieces of an archive together. If I'm buying a collection that has 50 uncirculated flyers from a show that I know somebody would be excited about, and it sells on eBay for $200, and I can sell them for $50 a piece, make some of my money back, people get something they'll be excited about. I'm just not in a position to keep everything. And even if I was in that position, I still think I would want to share stuff. I don't know, just because. But you know what? I've had people who have been doing this a lot longer than me. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. It's what you feel comfortable doing. And again, when I buy this stuff from people, they're very aware of exactly what my intentions are. I make it crystal clear. And again, I always try to overpay, is the other thing. Is it's like a lot of people that are at that point in life where they're ready to sell stuff, they might need the cash. And even if they don't need it, maybe they have family that they want to leave it to, or everybody's in a different situation. But I try to overextend myself because I think they deserve it. But I have bills to pay, and I have a daughter and everything else. So it's like, I can only be so reckless before it hits a dangerous point. But I don't know. It's something I struggle with.
It reminds me sort of like the vintage guitar thing, where you have people that collect vintage guitars like they're pieces of art, and they're just moved as like art pieces. They're never played or anything. And then you have people that are sort of in that world and feel like the guitars should be played. They should go to people that they should be in circulation and not, so I think it's akin to that, in some ways you want the stuff out there with people that are going to cherish it and love it. And that's important.
Yeah. And I have people that buy off me. And do I think the people who want to know about every nook and cranny in a punk record and they get it and there's a corner that's a little bit, do I find those people annoying and try to deal with them a little bit less? Yeah, sure I do. Because at the end of the day, I've never been a condition freak. I think, the way that this stuff, it's well loved, that's what it was meant to be. And it doesn't bother me. But if somebody does care about that stuff, who the fuck am I to tell them that they shouldn't be? Does it make me not want to sell to them? Yeah, sure. Hey, I want to go back to this. I like Tony Pradlick. He asks, because I agree with this. I think it's great. Nobody really talks about radio in New York, 77 to 79. And he throws out a couple specific things. That's stuff that like I love learning about. Like I'm not super knowledgeable about that, but I was like schooled in like the DC stuff. I have t-shirts and I even have like a Saints record that came out when the record came out, and it was the copy that was played on DC radio. For obvious reasons, I think that stuff's so cool to go back to the source and be like, the first time those guys were hearing, I'm Stranded by the Saints was this copy played on this radio station. So I'm well versed in like Noise, the show, as it enters kind of the hardcore realm. But I will definitely look into this era of WNEW.
This is interesting because I read this and I thought, well, this is a little too. I'm not going to read. So Tony Pradlick says, throwing a curve. Nobody really talks about radio in New York, 77 to 79. WNEW played Dead Boys, some Danger House 7 inches, Randoms, Let's Get Out of New York, Edie Amin by Black Randy.
Hell yeah.
The XLNT two-sider by Peroxide, Heart Disease and Christine, and most inexplicably Maids back in Baton. They also announced Ruts, Malcolm Owen dying of heroin OD. That's definitely a curve, Tony.
Yeah, and like something that's so cool about that, and something else that like when I was doing this book, I guess it just gets my brain kind of going, is that kind of shit. There was probably one or two nerds who knew, they were like, I love this shit. I'm in a position where I can play this and share it with other people. And that was like, there's a woman in my book who was that person who was bringing in records from like Sweden and Finland and all this stuff to Yesterday and Today Records in DC. And again, it's not magic. It's not mystery. Like, how did this stuff get there? It got there because one person gave enough of a fuck to say, I'm going to bring in copies of the Victims record from Australia so Nathan Straycheck could buy it and it could end up on Ian's mixtape. Like, all of this stuff, somebody had to put it there. Somebody had to do the fanzine. Somebody had to do the radio show. And back then, it was purely a labor of love. There was no other reason to do it other than to say, this record from Australia is fucking awesome. I want other people to hear it. And to me, that's like, a time before things were done for monetary purposes. They were done because for no other reason than they loved it. And I think that that's so cool.
Absolutely. Something that one thing that I have left, a little show and tell. Let's start with this, right? And you want to give us a little background, and I'll put up the other photos. As this is a Fender Pro Reverb amp. You want to give us some perspective on this?
This one goes out to your boy Sean Brennan in the comments section.
Sean Brennan plays an incendiary device with me. He's a guitar player.
All right, well then this one's for him. This is the amp that Scream recorded their first album on, and then they sold it to Iron Cross. Iron Cross recorded the first 2 EPs with it, and then it got loaned out to The Faith, and it ended up on the cover of The Faith Void Split. on the Faith side, if you see there's a little amplifier, and it's actually that amp. And I got it from Mark Haggerty from Iron Cross, who he realized it was on the cover of the record. One day he was sitting in San Francisco where he was living at the time, looking at the record, and you can see, if you're holding the record, you could see the stencil on there, the Scream stencil. And he's like, holy shit, that's the amp that I bought off them in whatever, 82 or whatever. And I love his interview where he talks about it in the book, because he's like, all the times it could have been stolen from the practice space, all the moves I made with it, and now it is sitting right here, and it's the amp like Nightbirds recorded our last record with it. That's a good example of like, man, this thing, it still works, it still functions. The history is there, the history is incredible, but it's a functioning thing that, like, come on.
I mean, something like that, and you still have it. I mean, listen, I guess everything kind of, anything can you for a price, right? But something like that seems like something that is really special, and that's something that would stay with you, unless some kind of that's really special, that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I try to be good about forever keeper stuff. I mean, there's always somebody that's going to love something or has a personal attachment to it. And I try to get stuff where it should go. That, stuff in my book is my personal collection. And that's all stuff that I intend to keep as long as my finances allow me to. If my daughter wants to go to college, or you never know, people get sick, things happen. And again, I'm not a millionaire, so I'm not in a position to keep everything forever. That's not my intention. I want it to go to the next people who should have it, and hopefully it carries on, from generation to generation. That's sort of the idea about the whole thing.
Sure. And big friend and supporter RS70 asks, and I have it in my notes. Of course, the notes I never looked at once during the whole show, because things were just smooth. Things were just happening organically. And what I have it in my book is in my notes is there a holy grail out there? He's asking, is there a record he's been looking for that he hasn't found yet? For you, at this point, being in the game for as long as you have doing this, is there a holy grail? Is there stuff out there that you're working towards?
There always is, but it's like, when I go look at a collection, I looked at a collection not long ago, and there was a zine in there that I didn't know it existed, and it was a precursor to, it was a Midwest zine, and it was like the Ramones fanzine, and I didn't know it existed, and I was like, what the hell is this? And he explained, and I was like, man, this is one of those instances where something I don't even know exists becomes my top want list item within a matter of seconds, and then I obtain it seconds later. So, I was just at Tesco V's house recently. You see people and you see their stuff, and there's a million things I'm looking for all the time. But
you know what I wanted to ask you, and I see in the background some stuff, and I see some Misfits stuff, and it seems to me like Misfits are, there's so many Instagram pages, and sort of like Misfits fans are like really psychotic, and they're just like, do the Misfit, there's no Misfit stuff in the book. There is?
There's a little bit, but you're right. The documentation on that stuff has been done quite a bit. I mean, I'm from Jersey. I absolutely, I love the Misfits.
You're right. I apologize. There is some stuff, but it's not like a big chapter on the Misfits.
No, it's been, I mean, those guys put out that, Umberto and those dudes put out that Misfits book a couple years ago, and it's like, I can't beat that. Those guys have the fucking goods. And I have some cool Misfits shit, but like, it's kind of like a league of its own. And like I said, it's been documented. To me, something like the bands, like the Radicals, the pre-Cause for Alarm band that, Radio Raheem and myself found the tape and we put it out. Like that came with the pre-orders of the book, was the fucking Radicals EP, or the Lips Are Back from the Midwest, the band that the Necros refer to as the Midwest's answer to the Weirdos. Sure. I want to talk about more of the undocumented stuff, more, because there's always going to be something where somebody says, hey, who was really special that nobody talks about?
Sure.
And that's the kind of shit that's like, man, I love the Misfits. I could talk about that all day. some of these other bands, like
well, and I think case in point, you know, the Faith stuff and the Teen Idol stuff, that's uncharted territory a little bit, and that you know that's great stuff. Ray Hogan asks, what's the one thing you could never part with?
I don't know. Like I said, everything in the book is my personal collection. I would find it hard to part with even a single. Like I said, I try to keep the core, and it's more of a thing. It's more about keeping the core integrity of an archive intact. You know, and it's like I would find it hard to get rid of one of Nathan's badges from the jacket that he's wearing. You know, because it's like as soon as you start taking that part, it kind of loses a little bit of the integrity.
Well, I think that, you know, what you do, you know, I've been to the events. I couldn't come to this other event because we were playing some fest. Although I wanted to really come down. This is one that already happened, but just pointing out, like, this is one of the events that you did. Hold on. There you go. This is the event that you did actually in down in Jersey, where you're from, with Brian, our friend Brian Baker, and Mark Haggerty from Iron Cross, and where you were screening Cause for Alarm. But I went to the one in New York, and what was really cool was you had a lot of this ephemera with you, like the amp and like the jacket and that stuff. And part of it was being there live, seeing the event, but it was sort of like you displaying that stuff was really awesome. And like, I think it's great that when you do these events, you can bring stuff like the amp and the jacket to these kind of events. Are there any of these other events planned or anything?
Not right now. Those are the 3 that we had planned, because if you look at this thing, I didn't realize how much it was going into it. Like, the screen printing was its own thing. And then putting together the Artifax.
What's blowing up over there?
You know what's funny? It's my daughter who knows I'm doing this because she's sitting across the room. I don't know why she's texting me 75,000 times. What's the question? What do I need from Whole Foods? Oh, she already did it. I guess I'm good. She's been very patient with our sick dog through this process.
Thank you.
Yes, no, she's the best. She does all this traveling with me too. She went to John Brannon's house. She went to Tesco V's house. She's hung out with all these people.
Here's another shot that you sent me when we were talking, just so people could see again. Here's the Cause for Alarm screens. This is the other screen that wasn't in the shot. The personal favorite, the Statue of Liberty one, is dope. I love that one.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have this. I didn't realize how big of a hit that stuff was going to be, the screen printing shit. And
the kid you had doing the screening, poor bastard. The dude that was, the line was out the door. He was like, I knew there was going to be some people. Like, he was like,
and you know what's crazy? I have a shirt here for you that I need to mail to you that he did for you at the Jersey event, because he's like, man, when I did Drew's shirt, it was kind of cockeyed. He's like, so
remembered? That's nice.
Yeah, he remembered. I got it here for you. I'll mail it to you. But yeah, I mean, like, especially when the band is like, yeah, cool. Like, an original one of these shirts, a couple $100. So if you could show up to the event and it's and somebody, I get this shit all the time, and it's like, whatever, haters are going to hate, but somebody's like, oh, this is a cash grab. You're charging $7 for the event. I lost hundreds of dollars on everyone, and not including the stuff that I sold, obviously, because I'm making money on that, but I pay a lot of money for that shit too. But the events themselves, doing the screen printing, paying all these people, a fair amount to go out and do it and shit. And somebody's like, I'm not going to pay money to do that. It's like, yeah, you don't have to. But there was a line of 150 people who walked out with a fucking Cause for Alarm shirt off the original screen. And it's like, I don't know.
You know what? I went, I paid. It was cool. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
It was a nice event, man. It's like, listen, people got to have something to bitch and carry.
It's all right. Yeah, people are allowed to bitch. I don't know. I take it all with a grain of salt. You gotta, I think, if you're gonna do shit like this, because again, punks, you deal with a lot of extreme personalities, and people get mad about shit, and I take hate mail with a smile on my face.
I've learned. I don't even pay mind to it anymore. It means nothing.
Yeah.
The future. what does the future hold? Looking down the road, where's Ancient Artifacts going? Could you give us any perspective?
I can't. I have no idea, which is kind of fun because I've kind of known what I'm going to do for the past bunch of years. It was like the tail end of Nightbirds. We did that whole thing and we played our last show and went through the motions. And then we started filming for this show, and I went and traveled all over the place and filmed these things, and then spent 18 months working on the book. And then the book was coming out. We had all these events booked, and then we had to put all this focus towards the events. And the last event happened last week. We went and we adopted our brand new puppy 2 days ago. And we're just fucking chilling. I'm getting ready for the Giants season. And
is that game tonight?
They lost preseason to the Jets last night, but I don't know.
Right.
This stuff has kind of been finding me, which is nice. But I'm a booking agent is my actual job. I have a bunch of punk artists and comedians and stuff in North America. That's what I do for work.
I didn't know. Wait a second. I didn't know that. How
Yeah,
did that slip by? You're a booking agent.
I am. Yeah.
Anybody on your roster I know?
I book hardcore stuff. I have bands like Modern Life is War. I book a Team Dresch 90s band. I have a comedian named Chris Gethard, who I think is in the other room because we're having dinner. He was on The Office and Parks and Recreation. I book the Marked Men. I did book Screaming Females until they broke up. Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff, but I like to still be involved. I'd like to be the Chuck Dukowski to other people's Black Flag. Like I love to be involved, but I love
great analogy.
Thank you. Yeah. The pup's name is River. Okay. Somebody saying something nice about Nightbirds. That's nice. There is no. What was somebody asking? The book is strictly like 77 to 83, strictly those regions. So it doesn't go on, not because I necessarily don't like stuff, but it's like I had to put some sort of a cap to it. Right. I would love to maybe do. I'm definitely not like a bookmaker now. I don't know that maybe I'll do another if something makes sense. But again, it's been very organic, and I like doing it in that very organic way. You want to step in? You don't want to say hi? So I don't know. I'll keep. I would like to see something happen with the show that we worked on. I think it was really cool. I think it was interesting. I don't know. I think that might be neat. But yeah, in the meantime,
yep.
Hit me with shit.
Ancient Artifacts, pick it up at Death Wish. The book is great. It's in its second printing. I know you're a busy guy. There's a lot going on over there. Anybody you want to thank or shout out as we head to the door?
Our mutual friend Laura Z. I love her to death. She was excited that this was going to happen.
Oh,
everybody in the book that partake, I think it's so cool. The people that do take their time and like talking about this shit, only a couple people declined and didn't want to, and that's fine. Nobody owes anybody anything. But my takeaway is always, if somebody is genuinely excited to talk about it, and especially, who the fuck am I? The fact that they'll sit down and talk to me about stuff, I'm really excited about that. It always means a lot. And again, if people decline, that's cool too. But it's like you always have like a warm place in your heart for those people that you're like, man, that was so cool. They welcomed us into their house. I'll never forget going to John Brannon's house and him being like, man, does your daughter like apple juice? I'm going to go out and get her some apple juice. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, just the coolest dude in the world.
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, man. Let's keep in touch. I got an idea or two at some point. I'm going to reach out and we'll talk some more. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It was really great.
I like ideas. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for people for checking it out. It's very nice of them to take their time.
Absolutely. Take care, Brian.
Awesome. Later, man.
Bye-bye. There you have it. Another one in the books. Ancient Artifacts. I highly recommend it. It is a great book. That was a fun show. Robert Hogg, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Solomon, yeah, man, it was great. I knew it was going to be a great guest. It's like a real show and tell kind of thing, Thanks, John, in London. Listen, I'm counting on you to get me those Oasis tickets. Chico, what's up? Yeah, Rick, Another Sunday matinee in the books. We'll see you back here a week from today with Chris Enriquez on September 1st. And then, of course, on September 6th, I'm in Philly doing the Ray Capo book event. So there you go. It's all good in the hood. Thanks a lot, everybody. That was a great show. Tell your loved ones that you love them. That's important in this life. Until next time, do good things, and good things will come to you.
Conditioned by indoctrination, conditioned by society. You're a victim of the digital age, a 21st century casualty. Open your eyes, you're losing control. Open your eyes, put down the phone. Conditioned by misinformation, it's just the media telling us lies. Decipher fiction from the truth.